everybody? Welcome to 10 Forward Weekly. How you doing? My name's Mike Freenham. I am also known as Ambassador Cal, and I am your community manager. And this hatted gentleman here with the long hair can introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Matt Campbell. I'm a system designer for Star Trek, also known as Cultured Soup.
That's right, you are Cultured Soup. I always forget that. The name doesn't really seem to fit you in my brain for some reason.
It's the Campbell part.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's been the stream, everyone. No. Mike figured out Matt's name, and we're done.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome to the stream. How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Yeah?
Good, yeah.
Yeah?
It's been a long day, but...
I know that feel. I've had so many, because we lost Monday, I've had so many freaking meetings the last 2 days that I'm just like, But we're here today to talk about something we announced on Monday. Well, none of us were here. Which is that we're adding a new tier to the reputation system for every reputation in the game.
Yes.
Tier 6 reputations. So, Matt, tell us a little bit about what the initial design idea behind that was.
Well, we wanted to do something reputation related, and we wanted to sort of revitalize old content and give people a reason to play stuff that they maybe hadn't played before. So tier 6 reputation seemed like the logical conclusion for that, especially since this is like a system that we've wanted to like touch before, but like it's just there are so many reps at this point that it takes a lot of work to go back and touch all of them up. So by revisiting this, we were able to tackle a bunch of new things, but then also add some like quality of life improvements.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we knew we wanted to do something like this, and we went through a lot of iterations to get to where we ended up. I remember there were some meetings where somebody was like, "What if we bumped reputations up to tier 10?" And we were all like, "I think everyone will kill us."
I'd still be working. I couldn't.
Yeah, you'd be done. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect from Tier 6. What kind of new and exciting stuff is coming with each reputation? I know we had a blog out with some of the rewards and stuff, but can you go into some more specific examples?
So speaking about those meetings that we've had before, I knew from the get-go that I wanted to make sure that Tier 6 reputations offered something for every style of our players. So that includes people who really appreciate Space Barbie. So by getting to Tier 6, you're going to get offered different color variants for different reputation shields. So every reputation will have a new style for its current reputation visuals. Do
you have one of those that you like that you've seen already that looks really cool?
Well, some of them are still being
in flux,
but I'm really excited to see what we do with the Riemann shield.
Jesse's early. I spoke to him earlier, and I said
at the time that the meeting said I should be.
When I spoke to you at your desk earlier, I said I'll see you at 4:30.
Well, these are the things that happen when I've had 3 hours of sleep.
Well, go just sit in the chair and observe us. Jesse ran a Dark Sun game for a bunch of us last night that ran somewhat late, so the poor man is tired.
I'm always tired. That's my secret.
So anyway, you were saying what kind of cool shield stuff can they expect? Pick an example.
So one of them is going to be the Riemann shield, and it's just already got crazy visuals, and it's exciting to see the stylized that we're going to be going with. The other type of players that we know that we have are like people who like power. So getting to Tier 6 is going to
continue.
Going to take all of your reputation traits to rank 2, and they're going to be increased in effectiveness. All of your existing reputation set gear is going to increase in effectiveness. But in addition to that, because we wanted to add variety to all of this, we are going to be offering alternate energy types for all of the set weapons. So in the case of like Terran Task Force disruptors, which are super popular, we're now going to have Terran Task Force phasers. And for Romulan, the experimental Romulan plasma array now has the experimental Romulan disruptor array. And for all of these, they all work for the sets, so they'll count towards them.
So for those of you who were on Reddit yesterday saying, can we please have Romulan disruptors? Yes, you can. We're doing that.
Yep. So yeah, that's a lot of that. The other thing we knew we wanted to approach was how to make sponsorships a smoother process. Before it was create a sponsorship token when you get to tier 5, take that sponsorship token, transfer it from your account bank to a different player or character, and then use the claim tier sponsors or claim reputation sponsorship from that new reputation to get the double experience.
It's too many steps.
Yeah. So now it's just going to be get to tier 5. Your reputations are all sponsored for your accounts, so it's just a big quality of life
That's
improvement.
awesome. And to be perfectly honest, I've never done that because I had thought the way it's worded in the thing, I had thought you had to get another player to sponsor you, and then you could get bonuses. So
yeah, that's not surprising. It was so convoluted. Yeah, it's. I mean, that type of thing is a product of sort of the design space that we needed at the time, but we've learned a lot since then.
That's cool. All right, so I'll get some questions thrown your way. STO Billy D wants to know, how will the new weapon flavors work with set bonuses? As in, will they buff the old damage type or the damage type of the new weapon?
I've gone through every set bonus that is applicable for this problem and added the new weapon type.
Okay.
So anything that references for set weapons and set consoles will now reference the new weapon type as well. So you won't have to choose. It'll buff both weapon types.
Nice. Yes. Horient, I guarantee you are correct. To balance out Matt's D&D shirt, somewhere in the Neverwinter area, there's somebody wearing an STO shirt. But that's only because when you start to work at Cryptic, they give you like 8 to 10 free T-shirts from both games. Like most of everybody who works here's closet is just Cryptic T-shirts.
They feed you, they clothe you. Cryptic is mother, Cryptic is father.
This one is actually mine specifically.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can get a red T-shirt instead of just black.
You have that Agents of Yesterday one.
I have that one. Yeah, I like that one too.
That's true. What happens to accolades for sponsoring?
For accolades for sponsoring?
Yeah, so I guess you used to get accolades for sponsoring yourself?
That should be automatic as well.
Okay.
Tier 5.
Okay. Cool. I'm looking around at questions, guys. Orangitis, I haven't forgotten you unless I have. Let's see. What's your question? Are any of the reputation supply box items being changed with this update?
If they're referring to the requisition box, that is
probably
not going to be the case.
Okay.
So specifically,
The underside of your hat is green. Look at that. You're just invisible up there. Wow.
That's interesting.
And actually, when Matt tilts his head up, that is the first time in my life I've ever seen Matt without a hat.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
The requisition boxes aren't going to be touched. And then to reiterate on that, the weapons that are in the stores are not getting alternate damage types. Only the set weapons. So the gear that you would get from reputation projects are going to get alternate weapon types.
Okay.
Otherwise those stores would be incredibly massive.
Yeah. Can the new weapons be re-engineered?
I don't think so yet. As part of a task that we want to do, we would want to do all of them at the same time.
Right, because currently reputation weapons can't be re-engineered, right?
I think the only ones that can be re-engineered are the newest reputation.
Right.
Because we're trying to get all the new weapons re-engineerable, but in this case, that would mean that half of the alternate types for these things were re-engineerable and the other half weren't.
Yeah. Firefly 00, in terms of the missing Mako and other costume sets, I saw that in the feedback threads we got on Monday, and we've started some conversations about maybe possibly adding those back in with Tier 6. The problem with that is, as it's been explained to me, that is actually a lot of work. So we'll see.
Just looking into that stuff for making sure that all of these new items are making sure they unlock the costumes as well.
Oh, yeah.
For every reputation. So that if you didn't get this item from the original
from
item.
Tier 5.
Yeah.
You still got to get it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff under the hood there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Electrum Leopard asks a question that I think the answer to is an obvious yes, but will the new weapons have a visual difference to the old weapons?
Yes, they will all have what you would expect the weapon to appear as with that alternate damage type.
Okay. Let's see. Yes, you can play D&D in the holodeck. I've actually known people who do it. You just go in-game to a holodeck, and then you play D&D with Roll20, and it works really well. I actually know people who play Star Trek Adventures in-game with their friends. They sit around their conference table on one of their ships in-game and play Star Trek Adventures, which is hilarious and wonderful and one of my favorite things.
Trekception.
Trekception, yeah.
Trek and Trek.
Let's see. Here's a question. This is an interesting one that's been coming up a lot lately. There are certain space sets that, because they were in older reputations, don't have things like warp cores that we added to newer reputations. I know they're not getting those updates with this particular push, but is that something we're looking at adding in the future?
We could potentially look at that. The process of adding things to a set is a tricky one. It's not impossible, but yeah, it wasn't on the initial rollout for this type of expansion for it. Plus, anything that was okay, well, this reputation will get this sort of treatment, and then the other ones won't. It sort of creates an imbalance. But I could definitely see us looking at that.
Okay, cool.
Just to bring them in line.
Cool. Let's see. There's a lot of suggestions coming in, guys, and questions that aren't about the Tier 6 reputations. Don't make me kick Matt out early and make him get back to work. Michael Ray Curran says the process of doing a backdrop is insane. I'm not sure what a backdrop is in SDO, so I'm just assuming he's throwing someone over his shoulder after throwing them into the ropes and bending over.
In SDO?
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me, right?
That is.
Yeah. Here's a question. Do you want to tease? There's a thing we were talking about yesterday that's coming with this that didn't get announced in the blog. I don't actually know quite how to describe it, but it's the thing you were talking about that wasn't quite ready of showing off which reputations you have done.
Oh, yeah. We didn't announce it on the blog?
No, you didn't write that in.
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Social zone ability.
All right, well, talk about it anyway.
Yeah, so by getting to Tier 6, as an additional little fun thing, you're going to get a power that you can use in social zones, and then when you activate it, based on which reputations you've got to Tier 6, your a flourish of dramatic effects will come out for that reputation. But if you've got multiples in, it'll continue to show off which ones you've gotten.
So if you've gotten all 12 or whatever, if you hit it, it'll get 12 different things firing out.
Very,
for example, what do you get? What fires out when you hit the Omega rep?
Well, we have a stylized effect based on the Omega symbol in that case, with particle effects flying out.
Nice.
And but yeah, they're
so
super
it's
cool.
it's a literally hit this button to brag power.
Yeah. But,
that's awesome.
That's the problem with reputations is this long thing that you're doing, and you get there's on one hand you can get the ground set and show off that. But on the other hand, you can't wear all of the sets at once. That'd be ridiculous. But
challenge accepted.
So this is just a way of saying I've done this big accomplishment.
Yeah. STO Billy D. Yes, just to clarify, each rep will now have 2 different weapon flavors rather than getting all of the weapon flavors. That would be a crazy amount of work for poor Matt if we tried to give every weapon flavor every reputation.
I tried to make sure that there's a balanced choice with all of the current energy types.
So we probably can't answer specific number questions on how much you'll need to produce to get to Tier 6, but what kind of time investment will players have to put in to get from 5 to 6?
It's not as crazy as you may expect. It's not going to continue to that exponential slope. But I'm trying to think of the best way to quantify it without just talking numbers.
Well, time, if it takes say a day of work to get from 1 to 2. I don't know. That's an inaccurate number, but you know what I mean. How much playtime would you expect people to have to invest to get from 5 to 6? And this is a guesstimation, folks. Don't take it as gospel.
I think with the sponsorship, it should be around the same from
4 to 5.
Tier 4 to 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And that's with everybody having all of their marks that they've already got.
Yep. Let's see. Trekking 2 wants to know if current rep marks will be able to count towards the Tier 6 system. So if you're sitting on 1 million of them, you can just turn them in right away.
Yep. That is the case.
Okay, cool. So. The counter command rep already has 2 weapon types. Is it getting a third?
It's actually... So counter command, that's the biomolecular rifles. Then they're actually getting to get a different energy type for both of them.
Oh, so they get 2 new ones.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
The same with the heavy turrets as well.
Nice. I
have an intimate relationship with all these weapons now.
Horient, there is no reputation gear that is going away with this update. Are active passive rep powers going to be affected in any way?
Yes, all of the Tier 5 active rep powers will also be increased in effectiveness just as much as the passives.
Nice. Let's see. Will the new visual shields be separate items for each visual, or be able to change a single rep shield to the different visuals?
They're going to be a separate vanity item, so
Okay.
you can use them with other shield visuals,
Right.
or not shield visuals, but different
Shields.
functional shields.
Okay, but they're just literally just a vanity shield.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. How will rep weapons with unique visual effects be affected? They won't change, right?
They're still going to be stylized with the energy type in mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same kind of effect, but a different like coloration.
Because we wanted to preserve all of the like initial like cool looking things. Like Lulukari weapons have like a beam that also has like the particles around it from the protomatter.
Right.
So we still want that there. We just want to show off and make sure that you know that this is a different energy type.
Energy type than protomatter. Okay, cool. Sam Kosh, I don't know if Matt can tell you anything more about the dinosaur pet, because that's actually Rob who designed that. You probably don't know much more about it than what was in the blog, right?
No, he'd be definitely the expert.
Cool.
On it.
That's what I know. I know it is cool.
I remember all of us were pretty excited.
Yeah,
to give out a dinosaur.
I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna run around with my friend the dinosaur everywhere. Yeah. Because, as we all know, Star Trek Online's dinosaurs are cooler than Neverwinter's dinosaurs. Always remember.
You can ride the dinosaurs and Neverwinter.
Shut up. Ours are cooler. They have missiles.
Laser cannons.
Yeah. Let's see. Guys, questions that aren't about the rep update, like, for example, questions about ship interiors, will not be answered for this stream. Cthulhu, I don't... Well, you can answer this. Are we making any tweaks to who can unlock or wear, like, say, you versus bridge officers, different reputation costumes for this update?
I haven't done any work for that because it's just... That's a whole nother can of worms to open up as far as the complexity.
You need costume and all that stuff. Yeah. Let's see. Thomas Elkins, we're not in terms of like new like ground visuals. That's actually a little bit of a different process than creating a vanity shield, and so it's a little bit more like creating a new costume is a lot different than creating a vanity shield. I wouldn't expect to get crazy variants in the reputation ground armor or anything like that. Let's see. MGMK 1977 really wants to know, because he's asked it 4 times, will any of the reps be getting a 360 plasma beam? It's very specific. I don't know if you remember that, but apparently it's the only type of beam that isn't 360 in the game yet.
There are no new set weapons being added to the reputation.
I think he's asking if one of the reputations has a 360 beam. Do you remember if any of them have a 360 beam that has now got a plasma variant?
360 beam. I'm trying to remember which one that's for. I know the PvP rep has a 360 beam. It's not big. Yeah, and then no, it's not a beam ray.
I do love that weapon though.
Yeah, it's a cutting beam. It is not a beam ray. No, I think the only 360 beam array is the Tetrion beam array from the competitor rep, and that's becoming anti-proton. I believe.
How do the elite marks interact with the tier 6 rep?
So elite marks will still be in use for the projects for the new gear that you're going to be able to get. Oh, that reminds me, something I haven't addressed. One of the other quality of life things that you'll be able to do when you get to tier 6 is complete a project that discounts all of your reputation gear projects for your account.
Whoa. For just that reputation.
Yeah, for that reputation.
Yeah.
So you get Gamma to tier 6, you complete this project, now all of your Gamma weapon projects, all of your projects for gear are going to be discounted for all of your characters for Gamma.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of new rewards just for completing a reputation now. Like you get to brag in a social zone, you get to sponsor yourself, you get makes it a lot easier to bring your alts up into line where you want them.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, we also added getting for every tier 6 rep that you achieve, you'll also be able to claim a fleet ship module for each of those. So potential 12 per character currently, and it's just a big accomplishment that we wanted to have, like getting to tier 6 and have it like sort of punctuated by this really good reward. And they're character bound, so you can't then go and sell them on the exchange and then blow up the market that way. But
Literally just torpedo the market.
yeah, like, but we wanted people to have something big to aspire to, and you complete a couple reps, and then you're able to go after a fleet ship. In addition to that, we also are giving out a retrain token for every tier 6 because you're getting all this different gear. You may be like, okay, well now I have this loadout that's really good for this, but I want to try something else out because we have all these new weapons. We wanted to take away that friction.
That's cool.
And give you something else to achieve.
That's cool. Let's see. Blah blah blah. Do reputation torpedoes get new energy types, or just be energy weapons?
No, it's specifically energy weapons because like it becomes a little weird once you get out of energy types. It is a thing that we could do in the future, but like not all reps have different torpedoes, and I think the Romulan torpedo is the only thing that actually has an energy type on it for as far as reputations currently.
Okay. Cool. Horiet, who didn't hear that, you get a fleet module for every tier 6 reputation you complete. Let's see. More questions. What happens to the tier 2 rep sponsorship tokens that people already have?
Currently, we have it planned to. I think I'm trying to think of what we're gonna do with those. We're switching it to be automatic at tier 5. I think that those are going to be deprecated. We'll have to look into that.
Okay. What does that mean by deprecated?
Like, we'll have to find a way to have them like basically like traded in.
You can turn them in for something.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Since Omega doesn't have an energy type, will it be getting a new type?
Since Omega doesn't.
I thought Omega had an energy type.
Yeah, there are energy weapons in Omega.
Yeah. I don't know what the question is there then. Hunter Bahamut, give us some more details on that question.
So I think in the case of Omega, we actually have there are phaser weapons that the Feds were able to get, and there are disruptor weapons that the Klingons were able to get, or KDF. And then there was also I believe it's an anti-proton neutral weapon that is now going to have alternate damage types for every one of those.
There's this person in our Facebook chat named Tony who is desperate to know what kind of new energy type Dyson will get. Do you remember?
I don't think Dyson's getting a new energy type because of the weirdness that is Dyson. So here's the thing. Dyson weapons are using proton currently, and the equivalent of proton, or as far as things that we've itemized and made sort of buffs for, there is very little in that space. So like for instance, like I couldn't be like, okay, this was proton, now it's disruptor, because it was balanced to be proton, which is the thing that has very little things that you can optimize or itemize into. So it I don't know, it became a weird problem that we had to make a determination. The same can be said for the Lucari wrist weapon. That's electrical damage, which is something that doesn't have a ton of different buffs. And as soon as if we were to make it like, okay, anti-proton, suddenly it becomes this thing that it requires a lot more care than just switching it over.
Because because when you say you balance it, you mean it does like more damage because people couldn't buff it as much.
Yeah.
And so like if you switched it to a different energy type, they would buff the crap out of it and it'd be this amazing, unstoppable, super OP weapon.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Let's see. Majarbar, that's not a bad idea. It says if it costs 100 marks to make a sponsorship token, could you just convert them back into 100 marks?
It'll be
something like that. Yeah. Let's see. Nebshake90 wants to know Ensephirum or Amon Amarth?
Both.
That's not a decision. Make a choice.
But those are great bands.
Make a choice, metalhead.
Probably Ensephirum.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't know Ensephirum at all, but that makes sense. People are very excited about your hat, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Good. I'm excited about it too.
Yeah. Let's see. Will all new reps going forward have tier 6?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
a new thing.
Yep.
And okay. Last question, folks. I'm seeing how many color alts will there be for each rep? Just one, right?
So there's one per reputation. So
12 new ones.
Yeah, 12 new ones. So in the case of like the Romulan rep, it's the Riemann shield that's being chosen, and then for the, I think it's Omega.
Yeah.
Where there's just one for each of them, not. We did some weird stuff back in the day.
Trekking 2, there isn't a release date announced for this system yet, but it will be coming with the first content drop of Age of Discovery, which we've already said will be later this fall. So that's later this fall. Is the best I can give you on that. It will be coming along with the mission reflow and some exciting things that we have to announce on Friday and some more things coming down the line. The Friday announcement will actually make this whole Tier 6 rep thing make a lot more sense. But anyway, we can't talk about it because we pushed that announcement back.
Yep.
Love you guys.
It'll be great.
Yeah. Let's see. Is it possible to get all 12 energy weapon changes on one ship? I don't think so, because there aren't any ships that have 12 weapon slots, are there?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of weapon slots.
Yes.
So it's unlikely. Yeah. Q Cullen, hey, welcome. You're late. All right. Cool. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to this half of the stream then. I'm going to let Matt get back to all the math he has to do.
Yeah.
And Jesse, get in here. Ah!
You're right, busted. Don't forget your. Oh yeah, a coffee.
Yeah, don't leave that there. This isn't your house.
Not littering.
Please, Matt's coffee with my Janeway special.
Yeah. So I realized since the last time you were here, I had to update your nameplate because you are now a
I am
senior,
now a senior content
designer.
designer. I get discounts at Denny's.
Because he's so old.
It's true.
Jesse has been designing games since before all of you were born.
The dawn of time.
Back before special was even a thing.
Back when we didn't even have 8 bits.
It was just lines of text on a screen. You were likely to be eaten by a Gru. All right, anyway. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jesse, as I may have said is a senior content designer for Star Trek Online. I almost said Magic the Gathering, which you're not working on in any way.
Not at all.
And you were in charge of the mission journal reflow that we're doing for Age of Discovery.
That's correct.
So, let's talk a little bit about what the original philosophy behind that was. Why are we making these changes to the journal?
All right. So Star Trek Online has accumulated a massive story over the course of our 8 years of uptime. And many of these story elements are ones that we've introduced in regular seasonal releases and expansions, like the story of the Romulan Republic that dropped with Legacy of Romulus was not even part of the game when we first launched. And in keeping with that and our forward-moving Age of Discovery story elements that we're going to include, we wanted to look at that story and say, okay, how can we straighten out this story, smooth rough edges, put the important elements forward, and make everything fit together with the new material that we're going to release. And we had talked about some radical re-engineering at first, like taking everything from Delta Quadrant on and putting that up front because the content there is more recent, so it's more polished. We have better tools now than we did at launch. We're able to stretch the engine in more interesting ways. Yes. But we ultimately decided that would make the storyline extremely confusing. You'd get introduced to all these characters and plots and things that were going on. Also very difficult for a new player to come in because a lot of the end game-ish enemies like the Voth are much more difficult to fight than early groups like the Orions and the Klingons.
When we make content for later in the game, we specifically design a lot for, like, this is the tactics the players know, so let's make something that does something weird.
Mm-hmm. So you get things like the Zenkethi who, when you Gravwell them together, they get stronger.
Yep.
And
the Herc, who are always behind you.
Yeah. Carry mines, kids. Don't carry mines. So the goal really was to streamline that experience, look at the missions that really stand out as telling important story elements and get those up front to give new Discovery players an opportunity to experience some of our best content, to look at some old things that we can improve, and also to take some of the content that has stories that are really good, but we want to tell in a better way, and say, okay, we're going to take this down and rebuild it and then re-release it later, in much the same way that we did with some of the early Romulan and Cardassian missions when we rebuilt those story arcs.
Sure. Now, there has been a concern that has been expressed to me today since we announced this, that there have been some missions in the past, and I actually don't remember which ones now, but that we have taken down with the thought that we would rebuild them and put them back up at some point, that we have yet to put back up.
Right.
And so how high of a priority would you say is it to like get these things remastered and back online?
So our priority for the immediate future obviously is Age of Discovery, and we're going to have new content for that we won't discuss. And that is the most important story for us to tell right now. So you should expect us to be releasing new Discovery themed and related content for quite some time. But as part of this initiative, we're going to also try to make time to take and retell some of those stories in the same way that we did the aforementioned Romulan and Cardassian ones. So, for instance, there were originally 14 or so different Cardassian missions that eventually became the 4 that we have today, plus the 2800 featured episode, 5 missions there. And what we did was take the highlights of the story elements from those missions that were important and turn them into those 4 new missions, like the Factory or the revised version of the New Link. So the goal ultimately is to do the same thing to the Klingon War. We're keeping missions that are outstanding in some way or really important to telling some aspect of the story. So that's why we're keeping missions like Researcher Rescue, which talks about how the whole war between the Federation and the Klingons in 2409 started as a result of shapeshifters infiltrating the Gorn government. Or the Doomsday device, where you fly a captured Klingon ship and fight against the Doomsday machine, because it's just so iconic. So we're going to retouch them, as I like to say. They're not getting a full overhaul, but we're polishing them up a little bit, smoothing out rough edges, fixing ancient bugs. And then missions that are being removed temporarily from the journal, like Past Imperfect, these have important story elements, but we may want to take them and put them together into a new form that really hits the highs of that story. So you might see, for instance, City on the Edge of Never, Past Imperfect, and Kuva Ma all turned into one special new episode at the future. Perhaps we might do something else. We don't.
I know one of the things you told me when we were
but-
first talking about this was that we can't lose City on the Edge of Never because it's our Leonard Nimoy dialogue in the game, and we have to keep that in.
We have to go back and talk to Spock on the original Enterprise. It is a signature moment, and we really want to keep that. But we want the missions that, especially players just coming out of the Discovery experience, are going to play to be ones that are memorable, ones that meet a level of quality that we expect, and that tell the story that we're trying to tell well. And as part of this initiative, our lead writer has gone through, played all of these missions again, he's taken notes, and we're straightening out parts of the story that are confusing or weird dropped threads or things where characters just get introduced suddenly.
Right.
So that these things should be easier to follow, and you get a better, stronger sense of what is the narrative now of Star Trek Online and where it came from and where it's going.
So this is more than just like we're pulling these out and we're shuffling these around. We're actually going through mission by mission and trying to make sure that the overall story of Star Trek Online is something that's easy to follow for someone who's never been to the game before.
Exactly correct. So if you are a veteran player, the experience that you're going to see is maybe you want to replay some of the missions that remain in the Klingon War because we've touched them up a little bit. Researcher Rescue, for instance, has some new effects, some new dialogue. There's a voiced character that appears in it now. Not a Star Trek alum, but someone who will help you out in the mission. And so you can replay those old missions and get a fun sort of look at, oh, they've upped the experience a little bit. But if you're a brand new player and you don't know anything about Star Trek Online, you just say, oh, I saw Age of Discovery and I want to try it, you're going to get an experience that comes in chunks that you can comprehend and makes the story comprehensible. So a great example is that the Iconian War thread, it really starts up in the Romulan story arc because of Terrace, experimenting with the Iconian gateways. And in the Klingon War story arc for Federation, the Iconian stuff is sort of a non-issue. But it comes up very suddenly, And at the same time, when you start the Romulan mystery arc as a Federation player, you start with the Empress Sela episode, and you wind up in a conference, and there's Romulan Republic elements, and the Romulan Republic's never explained if you're a Federation player. You had to have played a Romulan character to understand what's going on. So we're smoothing that out. We're going to have some characters that talk a little bit about, oh, this is why the Iconians and the Romulan story are conflated together, because the Hoba supernova disaster was related to Romulan and Iconian meddling, and similarly to say, these are the players that you should know. There's the three factions now of the Romulans: the Republic, the Old Guard Imperial Navy loyalists, and then the Tal Shiar security apparatus and their secret masters. And so we're looking for ways to make that narrative fit better and be introduced well, because there's these old pieces of content that didn't account for story that we added later as we developed the game.
So here's an interesting question from Sir Boulevard. As we're sort of tightening up the story of the game, are we perhaps considering taking this out of 1 year of just 2409 having all of this happen within it? Have we talked about messing with the star dates at all?
That is ultimately a call that's above my level. So I don't get to make that decision. I am sure that at some point we will visit what's going on in the Star Trek timeline in terms of 2411, 2412, and so on. But that's not one of the major goals here. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Sir Boulevard, we're not adding star dates to all of the missions right now. But if we were to go ahead and say, okay, we want to revise what the actual calendar year timetable is, then that would probably be a high priority.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's see. Got some very specific questions coming in.
Sure.
Rasolisu, there we go. It says, since the mission Blood of the Ancients in the Iconian arc assumes that you did the Breen arc, will there be any changes to it?
Not especially. What will happen is that in a lot of cases where there's dialogue that references a particular mission, we tend to bifurcate that dialogue, and we have some dialogue that you get if your character has completed the prior mission, and some dialogue that you get if you haven't. So what you'll likely see is people who play Blood of Ancients will tend to get dialogue that assumes that the Breen stuff happened off screen. However, although it's mentioned in our blog that Breen's story and a few of the other story arcs are being turned into sort of side missions, they're not leaving the game. You can still play the Breen missions. You can still play the Wasteland Nimbus arc, Davidians. These things are not going to be in the mission journal, so they're not part of your directed flow of things to do. But one of the concepts that we're going with now is that it's a big galaxy and there's lots of problems, and Starfleet captains especially are encouraged to get involved in these things. So these become sort of found story missions, where if you want to go and help the Deferi and deal with the Breen problem, you can do so. You're not deliberately directed there, but it's still available for you to play.
So if you're, say, a brand new player who joined because they like Discovery and got through the Discovery stuff, would you have any way to be directed towards these missions other than stumbling across that planet while you're exploring?
Yes. So at the end of the Klingon War arc, there's a new mission where Admiral Quinn contacts you and basically says, okay, here's the situation in the galaxy at large. Now, we have a series of missions that we want you to undertake, and of course he's going to direct you next to the Romulan mystery. But he mentions specifically that there are trouble spots in other parts of the galaxy, and here are some of them. And what other captains should see is you will get a series of missions in your available mission tab that are essentially handoffs for these, that say, okay, there's a trouble spot at Nimbus. Go to Nimbus 3 and you can deal with these sorts of things. It doesn't have to appear in the mission journal for you to be able to do it, just like, say, the Donatu system patrols or the Franklin Drake missions out in that area. So you can still get these missions, you can still be directed to them, but we're sort of making a distinction between this is the main storyline that we want all players to follow, and then there's other stuff happening in the galaxy that you'll find. So think of it almost like the way that we have patrol missions, where you'll fly around and sometimes you'll find a system that something weird is happening in. You'll fly in and do stuff. These are similarly things that aren't necessarily part of that whole directed story thread that we're trying to tell right now, but they're still happening in the galaxy, and we still want you to be able to be involved with them.
Which, in a weird, it's not the exploration system that we've always wanted and still plan to implement someday, but it is a little bit more of a reward for exploring the galaxy and not just following the linear story path.
Right, and this means that, say, you finally convince one of your friends on the Xbox to join your fleet and play Stowe with you, and he says, okay, how do I get the trophy for this Breen story arc? I don't see it in the mission journal. Oh, it's still there. I know how to get it.
Yeah.
You can still play that content.
Yeah. So here's a question that came up a bunch. Since there will be less missions to play, are we adjusting the XP rewards at all for those missions so that you level up at the same rate by the time you've reached the end of the story?
So we've gone through to make sure that by the time that you get through everything that's in your journal, you'll be level 65.
Okay, sweet. That answers that question. Let's see. Wraith Shadow, we don't talk about upcoming content, but anyone in chat can tell you a Borg faction is the most requested thing we ever get, and we're aware of that. Thank you for your question. Let's see. So we're integrating task force operations to the into this, which
Also
is
true.
Which is the new name for queues, guys. There'll be more information about that
Right.
on Friday.
So task force operations, TFOs, some of our vets may remember back in the day when we called the Borg ones special task forces.
Yeah.
Well, there's a wide variety of these task force operations. They're now part of that mission structure. So as you make your way through story arcs, you will hit missions that say Task Force Operation, Romulan Mystery, Task Force Operation, Cardassian Struggle, and so on. And once you hit that mission, it unlocks certain task forces that are related to that part of the story. So, for instance, you could get into the Romulan Mystery, and then you get Task Force Operation, Romulan Mystery, and it says, okay, we need you to go and help because Romulan Republic ships have been stolen by Tholians, and we need you to rescue them. Go play Azure Nebula Rescue.
Which gives a lot of these TFOs kind of more context and story within the main thing as opposed to just a list of activities.
So they're linked to the story. I'm going to sidebar that I'm aware of the issues in Azure Nebula Rescue, and that's on our list of things that'll be fixed. So
good.
We don't want to be directing you to bad content. So as soon as you get that mission, this unlocks the ability for you to play in that that piece of content, that TFO. So in this case, you now can play Azure Nebula Rescue. There are a couple of caveats. You must have your allied faction. So if you're an unfactioned Romulan or Dominion character, sorry, you can't get one of these unlocks in order to try and bypass the normal requirements.
Which should be difficult for you to get to that part of the mission journal anyway, but
Yes.
we know.
But as soon as you have that mission, or have completed it by doing the thing once, you now have unlocked that TFO and you can play that regardless of what your level is, as long as you've made it past the tutorial, hit your certain minimum benchmarks and so on, got your allied faction. This means that there will essentially be leveling TFOs, if you like. So you can play some of these early TFOs repeatedly if that's your preferred way of gaining your levels. Okay. There was another thing I was going to add.
Here's a question. So say, like, a lot of these things, like, say, as you're going along, you get, I don't know if you will, but you get a mission to send you to, like, infected space while you're level, like, 25. That's hypothetical. That's not happening. That's me just pulling numbers out of my butt.
Very unlikely.
Would you then be brought up to 60 with everyone else in the queue? Or is it balanced? Like, how does that work?
So we're working on making all of the TFOs use a version of the level averaging tech that you've seen before. And I've seen a couple of people on Reddit say, I don't like this. I don't want a level 45 character in this queue with me. But the reality is that these are designed to set these in a way that we don't have to split the player base according to level bands. So one of the big problems that we had early on is that many of our queues were split up according to ranks. So you could play this if you're a captain, this if you're a rear admiral, and it might be the same queue, but you could only play with people within a certain range of levels. And this winds up splitting the player base into tiny amounts of people. There's 12 people that want to play that are captains and 3 that want to play it that are commanders, and that in turn makes it hard for them to fire. By making it so that these things level adjust in order to try to accommodate groups of people like that, it means that you get a larger pool of people to be able to play together, and that means that your TFOs are more likely to fire. It also means that you need to be on the lookout for players who are below your level. They get sidekicked up, but they're not going to have as many powers because they're using a weaker ship, and you need to help those people out. Play as a team. TFOs are about teamwork.
That's a good point. Yeah. Let's see. Figimus, I don't need to answer this, but we aren't doing any work to look at. I I can speak English, I swear to God. We aren't doing any work to for Accolade bug reports and things like that in terms of old missions as we go through this, are we?
So accolades that are tied to missions that have been pulled from the rotation will be inaccessible until we remaster the mission in some fashion and bring them back. I do look at bugs that are related to accolades whenever I'm working on a particular piece of content, so you may expect to see a few accolade bugs get squashed. It's not the highest priority right now, but it is a continuing battle.
Yeah. Duncan Idaho wants to know, the level averaging thing you're talking about, is it being currently used in the Gamma Battle Zone?
It should be. So the way that the technology is supposed to work, and this is really more for the programmers, I implement the data that says, use this tech. The programmers say, here's how it actually functions. What it's supposed to do is take the levels of all of the players that are in the team together in the TFO, average them together, and then set all enemies on the map to that level, and sidekick all players to that level. Mm-hmm. So if you've got some 60s and some 65s, it'll average you all to 63, and then spawn all your enemies at 63. Now, when you get, as I mentioned before, a really wide spread, like some 65s and some 40s, your 40s are flying lower power ships that don't have as many powers. So even if they're sidekicked up to 65, they're throwing better damage numbers, but they just don't have as many high-ranking bridge officer abilities. And so they're going to lag behind a little bit. And that's to be expected, but conversely, high-end level 65 players tend to blow the curve a little bit because of all of the combos that they can throw together, especially when you start factoring in tier 6 reps, things like that. So this is kind of expected. Like I said before, play as a team. Help out the guys that are working their way up through the levels.
Make heal boats.
Yeah.
So let's see. Orange, I just had an interesting question that I wanted to ask. One of the things we've been doing in terms of this, although it's not actually part of this mission reflow, is adding our Star Trek guest actors earlier and earlier in the mission thing, so that, like you encounter Nog in the Federation tutorial, Geordi shows up earlier, stuff like that, so that it's not you have to get to level 50 to encounter the iconic Star Trek actors.
Right.
But that's also means we're removing some original STO characters. How do we balance creating new characters for STO with making sure that we have all the celebrities in there that we want to tell the story?
That's an interesting question. Paul, our writer, is probably a better one to give you a really good answer to that question. Yeah. But in general, what we look at are what is the needs of the story that we're telling, and where would these characters fit in terms of that narrative. So, for instance, when you first have Geordi show up now early in the Klingon war mission to help you out at the end of Diplomatic Orders while you're fighting against the Undine ship, it's because a large fleet element of Starfleet shows up in order to assist you. And we said, okay, it makes sense that we could have the captain of the Challenger, Geordi LaForge, decide, oh, I'm in the area and I'm going to come out there and give a hand, because there's a bunch of ships there already. Right. Similarly, if we have an opportunity to use a canonical character and it fits well, like adding Nog into the tutorial, then typically we're going to favor that sort of character over the ones that we've created for STO, because people come to Star Trek because they know and love these people, and they want to interact with them, they want to hear them, they want to see the characters that they love or love to hate in the game. And so that's one of the things we really favor. We use the secondary characters that we've created when we have a storyline that we've invented or picked up from Star Trek, and that character really fits better with it than anything else. Or when we have a character that has become so beloved by our fan base that they want to see more of this person. And that's how you get characters like Obasek and Van Zyl, who make recurring appearances. Yeah, Kumarke is a great example because, she started as, everyone thinks she's just sort of this one-off character who's an administrator on a science station, and you got to go on the journey with her of discovering what it's like to enter the galactic stage. Yeah,
which was super cool. Let's see. Rasolisu, if you have a temporal recruit requirement to do one of these missions being removed, it will just autocomplete. So that that'll just complete for you every time. Let's see. Trying to look and see what else. Kurland Dark Wen. It's called the 2800. No, it's called. Is it 2800? No, it's Boldly They Rode. The Kurland Dark. That's our.
Kurland Dark. The 2800.
This is 2800. That's
also known as Lost Dominion sometimes because it's the Dominion ships that were lost in the wormhole.
So you already have it.
Yeah.
Cthulhu says he's leaving STO if we replace Kurland. Interesting. I'll let Jeremy know that you're very attached to his voice work.
Yes, while the 2800 is becoming one of the sort of side stories, Kurland will always be here.
Yeah. Let's see. That's not helpful. That's not a question about the mission reflow. Remember, guys, if you don't ask me questions about the mission reflow, they don't get asked. Here's a question I have for you. How will this affect? We know sort of in a lot of detail how this is affecting Federation characters. How does this affect Klingon and Romulan characters?
So the impact is much lower on those characters. Realistically, one of the biggest story hurdles we had for Federation was that new Discovery characters are going to come from struggling against the Klingons in the Discovery era, and then have to get reconciled with the story of the Klingon War in Star Trek Online. And so we wanted to make that story feel good, feel like there were parallels there between those eras of warfare with the Klingons, and what have we learned, and how are they different, and so on, and what's the deal with House Mokai and the cult of Takuvma. So that meant that was the area that we really wanted to hammer on and say, okay, you get through your Discovery experience and you start interacting with the 25th century story, and that story needs to feel like it matches the expectations that have been formed for your Discovery character. That problem doesn't exist if you're a Klingon or a Romulan. The Romulan story arc is still really, really good.
Yep.
The Klingon story arc, obviously I would love to retouch that, but since you're not making brand new Klingon characters right now, that's one of those things that's
you are if you're a smart and intelligent and good-looking person.
Okay, so maybe you're making some additional Klingon alts, especially because of the benefits from the rep system that we just heard about. But those stories weren't the ones that we said, oh gosh, these stories front and center are going to really impact how everything works with our Discovery content. So again, those are things that are candidates for getting retouched, and it is really on our list of episodes to remaster. We want to go back and look at the Klingon story arc, especially since we now touched on the Fakiri during the Dominion War story arc.
Well, and because the Klingon story arc, like, I know it's the popular opinion among the content designers that it's in need of some help, but I'd never played much STO before I started playing Klingon, and that whole story is awesome.
It's a really great story. Just as I mentioned early in this stream, we have better tools now. We can do more interesting things with it. We can make higher quality maps. We can bring in more voiced characters, and we would love to make that experience even more quintessentially Klingon.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Question. Here's one that this is actually not coming from chat, but it was coming from all over Reddit today. What was the decision-making process with keeping Kobali if we're streamlining things?
So we are going to keep the Kobali battle zone, but what will ultimately be the result of it is that you will get essentially a handoff to the Kobali battle zone. You'll meet the admiral there. You'll see Captain Kim. And you will play the story-based missions, but all of the battle zone elements will be optional.
Okay.
You are not required to grind your way through all of the Kobali Crisis in order to proceed through the mission. That's going to be our ultimate goal. It will still be there to play if you want to do it, to get the rewards, to get the side story elements, but we're going to focus on the main mission stories like Dust to Dust.
Nice, which is a great mission. Let's see. Guys, I don't think so. Level balancing tech, while that is something Jesse knows about, if you're asking about what specific cues he uses it or not, that's not really the point of the stream tonight. Let's see. Nevshake90, I'm not going to read that question out loud, but just so you know, and so people in Twitch chat know, no is the answer to that question. Let's see. Tim Hughes, the Discovery arc is going to be its own thing. It will tie into some elements we've seen in Season 1 because it's based on Discovery, just like other things in STO tie in, but it's going to be its own thing as well. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
There will be reasons for your 25th century characters to get entangled in all of the Discovery business.
Yes. Will the missions that point you towards the TFOs unlock the corresponding reputations early?
So you still won't be able to make donations to reputation tasks until you hit level 50. And that's just built into the reputation system. But you can start getting your marks early.
Okay,
so
you can get a head start.
If you play Azure Nebula over and over again, starting at level 15, you will have plenty of Romulan marks by the time you hit level 50.
Nice. Let's see. Guys, I can't drop any more information on Age of Discovery right now other than what we're talking about today. There will be more information on that coming soon, though. Let's see. Will Temporal Ambassador be revisited for the Temporal Agents or TOS Starfleet?
It is likely that we will rerun Temporal Ambassador at some point in the future, probably around the time of we don't talk about upcoming content.
Oh no, not Temporal Recruit. The mission Temporal Ambassador.
Mission Temporal Ambassador.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Temporal Ambassador is moving, and as part of the mission journal reflow, we've taken out all of the temporal arc elements that bounced around in the mission journal, and we've moved them to one specific area. And now the way that the story works essentially is, after the Iconian War, you have the future-proof story arc where you talk to Daniels, and Daniels essentially says, okay, we beat the Iconians with time travel, and there's all these terrible side effects. So start bouncing through time and cleaning everything up.
Nice.
And Temporal Ambassador is one of the bookends of that, and Temporal Ambassador sort of begins that bouncing through time experience, and the end is Survivor. So
nice.
It's all about how the choice to use time travel to defeat the Iconians has repercussions, and those repercussions are felt personally by the individual who caused that whole paradox in the first place, Sela, who was herself the result of a paradox.
Yeah. It's so much paradox. So little time. Let's see. Figamus wants to know if we're, since we're now having some of these missions be off as side stories, are we ever planning on making things that are like that, side stories in the future? You know, stuff like a series of missions that will be off the main story arc, but involve an adventure somewhere.
We're really interested in the idea of saying, hey, how about if we just do a one-off mission that's not part of the main storyline, but it's goofy, or it's weird, or it's offbeat.
It's where a lot of really cool things like Survivor and Renegade's Regret come from.
Exactly, or Alpha, the fantastic Klingon mission. And so that is an opportunity that we can have when we say, okay, we want to really support the idea that there's side missions where it has its own self-contained story, and maybe it's tangentially tied to what's going on. So that's certainly an area we want to pursue.
I can answer this one. Horiant says, basically, is CBS going to allow us to cross over Discovery era story content with content from other eras? The answer to that is basically yes, but we have to clear stuff like that. And so some of that will happen when we get the ability to do it. Some of it will not. Like I was telling people at STLV, just because we're doing stuff that's more related to Discovery now, it doesn't mean we can't use, like if there's a Discovery element, for example, in 2409, there's no reason why Nog can't interact with it. For an example, we don't have Aaron Eisenberg book to come back yet, but that sort of thing.
I wouldn't rule him out.
Yeah, no, he likes us. Well, he doesn't like me. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
he likes me.
He likes you.
I
think he likes you.
It's hard to tell.
I think the gentle ribbing is well intentioned.
Yes. We may not actually be getting audio. Okay. Testing. Can you hear us? Hello? Can you hear us?
Audio's back.
Okay, yay.
Hooray! Yes, I made an
sorry.
engineering error.
Yes.
So someone was asking if we're getting rid of advanced and elite queues. We are not, but elite queues will still have a minimum level on them. Elite queues are not for scrubs.
Good.
Yeah, you probably still want to get together with your fleet and plan out your builds and do your elite queues with a team of people you know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Last question. Somebody from Facebook or Twitter, throw it at me. Let's see. Nebshake, I can't talk about whether Discovery characters will have different warp effects, but probably. We usually do stuff like that. Anybody? One more question? Anyone? Augmented Dictator Game says advanced will be changed, though. I just don't think that's true. Those keys are staying how they are.
They are largely remaining similar.
Yeah. Lord Inquisitor Tazurin, that's actually I can't really answer that. Well, that's not a Jesse question. In order to update the 2800 to have all the new DS9 maps, it would be a Herculean effort of work from the environment team, and so it's something we'd love to do someday, but maybe not right
eventually.
Away. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any questions you can answer, Jesse. So
okay.
I'm going to wrap us up. But guys, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining me, Jesse.
Glad to be here.
And we will see you guys next week with more information about what we're announcing on Friday, which you'll see on Friday. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. 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 I've still